All right, everyone, we'll call to order the betterment hearing with the Mashpee Board of Sewer Commissioners for Summerwood. Hey, guys. Thank you. Now calling to order the Mashpee Sewer Commission special betterment hearing for Summerwood. This on Monday, January 30th, 2023. I'd like to start, if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, and as is our custom, we'll observe a brief moment of silence. Thank you. All right, so tonight, this is a betterment hearing specifically for Summerwood condominiums only. It is directly applicable to your properties. We're going to have we're going to open this up to public participation if there's any commentary to be made beforehand, but there will be ample time for anyone to speak, ask questions, and make statements after the presentation is given. I would encourage you to wait until then, but it's also your prerogative if you need to speak now. Okay, thank you. Our new business for tonight will entail the presentation by Mr. Rajak. He is our interim town engineer, and he will describe to you the process, what it is, why it's happening, and try and communicate everything we feel you need to know. And if we miss anything, speak up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. This is a very short presentation this evening, which is rare for me. I do know that. But it's only a few slides. I try to be as informative as possible this evening. I do understand for those that have never experienced a betterment, it can seem complex, it can seem difficult. So I'm going to try to make it as easy to understand as possible on this. So as far as the process goes, the commission needs to adopt a betterment policy. That has already been done. It was done on October 27th of last year. The policy, for all intents and purposes, is basically a table of different enterprises that can theoretically exist in the town of Mashpee. And the reason for doing that is because when you're going to do a betterment, you have to have a method of doing the assessment. So the policy establishes the method, and I'll be describing that a little bit. So for process-wise, once it's determined that a betterment's going to occur, a hearing notice is sent by certified mail return receipt to make sure that everyone is aware that there is a hearing so that you have the opportunity to be heard. That's the purpose of it. Then the commission will conduct a betterment hearing. That's why everyone is here this evening for that purpose. They'll vote an order of assessment before the evening is out, and that will include the area to be assessed, which is Summerwood proper. There is a list that accompanies the betterment order that has all the respective condominiums within Summerwood by name as well as by location. The estimated cost of the project, there's total and unit costs. You have two totals here. I'll be giving you the total cost of what is being assessed with respect to construction. And then based on the betterment policy, that will then trickle down and be converted into a individual unit cost, all right, for each condominium unit. They'll have to vote the apportionment of costs, what the percentage is going to be of the total value that you have to pay and what percentage the town will pay. And in many cases, in a lot of towns I know was specifically road betterments. A lot of times those are voted at 100%. The repayment period, they have to ascertain what that repayment period is going to be. In this case, it can be up to 30 years. Road betterments are generally less. And lastly, they have to vote an interest rate. It could be like a 5% interest rate, and or the state legislature also allows 2% above the nominal rate in some cases. These assessments are going to be estimated assessments. The final assessment will be done after the project's done. All the costs are known. So this is only based on the estimated value, which is extracted from the bid documents, in that we know how much it costs to lay main, install manholes, services, things like that. But these will be applied in the form of liens against the property itself. And January 1st of 2023, the law requires that that list that the commission will be looking at tonight for the assessment has to be who the property owner was as of January of the prior year, or not prior year, the current year. So in this case, it'll be January 1st. The lien is against the property, it is not against the owner. I think that that's an important distinction for people to think about, that anybody can go out and get a loan for just about anything. But when you do, it's in your name, and it is on you, and if you default on it, it's against you. This goes in the property, so it follows with the property. If you were to default, they're not coming after you, and it doesn't impact your creditworthiness on a lien. So this gets recorded in Barnstable, and it stands against the property. The issue has to be satisfied at the time that the property is transferred or sells, okay? You get repaid through the property tax bills sometime in 2024, and I'll be going over that anyway, but sometime in 2024, 25, the final assessment will be made. And at that time, that's when it can go to the assessor's office in order to be included on the property tax bills. I'll back up on that one a little bit. I already mentioned 2024, 25, but the final betterment cannot exceed the estimated value. And I know at one of the prior meetings I made a comment about this, that if the town were to wait until the project was done in order to do the final analysis and do the final betterment, the question you would have to ask yourself, between now and 2 years from now, do you expect that the cost of doing it would be higher or lower? I've been in this business for a very long time, and I can assure you it would be higher. So in this case, you're getting the benefit of how this project was bid at that time, meaning last year when we received the bids. And once this value is established this evening, it cannot go up. So even if the final betterment was twice as much as what the value is this evening, you still only pay what is ordered this evening. You cannot pay more. It can be less. You can pay it off in a lump sum. And, well, I'm gonna back up to this. You can pay it off in a lump sum, but generally paying it off for people who don't like to have debt is only beneficial if you're paying interest. And as you'll see as we go through it tonight, it's probably not necessarily in your best interest to do that. So I'm just kind of giving you a heads up on it. So the purpose of the policy is to establish what's known as a baseline rate unit. And there's a couple things I do want to explain as I get into the next two items here. The policy that the commission voted established a uniform unit method, or took advantage of the uniform unit method. So that becomes the base unit. And that base unit is translated into what's known as a sewer equivalent unit, or SEU. So when a town does betterments, and I'll use a road betterment again as a good example. For many years, road betterments, when the town takes a private road, is a good example. The residents on the road petition the town to take ownership of it. Generally, that happens after the road's falling apart, all right? So remain private for a number of years. But once it needs heavy maintenance, that's when they petition the town as a rule to take it over. The town can do that, needs to have 50% plus one to request it, but if the town takes it over, it does an estimate of what it's going to cost to bring the road up to standards. and that's usually a fairly hefty cost, if you will. And then a lot of towns used to assess it based on frontage or what's called fixed depth of way. Frontage means the more frontage you have on that road, the higher your betterment's going to be. So if you had a frontage that was 200 feet, your neighbor had frontage that was 100 feet, it was guaranteed yours was going to be twice the amount, all right, because you're paying for all the asphalt in front of your house. Fixed depth of way is area, so the bigger the lot that you had, the more you paid on a betterment. None of that, however, is applicable when you're dealing with a utility like a water main or a sewer main. Why? Whether it's a water or sewer main, each property is getting one connection. Has nothing to do with the size of your property, has nothing to do with the frontage of your property. So the equitable method would be a sewer equivalent unit or one SEU for a single family residence. And that's what this is. One SEU is equivalent to 440 gallons per day, or one single-family residence or condo unit. That's the base unit. Other facilities can be charged more than that. So some multifamily units would be higher than one. Choose to determine the assessment unit and the total value. So on this next line, categories of uses. I already mentioned about having different types of buildings. Probably a good example would be like a nursing home, apartment house, motel. They have multiple units within them, all right? And as such, would be assessed a higher number of single-family units or SEUs. So they're going to pay a higher betterment because they're contributing substantially more wastewater. So all uses are assigned one or more. One is the baseline and one is the minimum. And that's what you are being assigned here this evening is one unit. So you take the total project cost, which I'll be giving you the values in a moment, and divide it by the total number of SEUs in the project area, and that's going to give you the unit cost for how much your betterment is going to be. So this is the proposal from me to the commission this evening. The total estimated cost on the Summerwood property is $1,060,000. That's the collection system only. So it includes mains, manholes, services up to the building, and any other appurtenances thereof. It does not include the lift station. Now, I do know that there is going to be a lift station on Summerwood's property, and that was the easement to be able to do that was conveyed to the town, and your system is going to feed into that lift station. But at least whenever I have promoted a betterment, two of the major costs that I've always extracted from any equation is any treatment plant costs, because I've always considered them to be a common facility for the town, as well as a lift station, regardless of where they are or what their purpose was. They too are common facilities because the system can't be constructed adequately if you don't have several lift stations on it. So in this case, no lift station costs and no treatment plant costs are included within the numbers that you're seeing here this evening. So the SEU value then will be translated as taking that $1,060,000, you have 116 units in Summerwood, you divide it into that, and you come up with $9,137.93 per unit.
Just to correct, there's 117 units.
Okay, our list had 116, so, all right. The apportionment that's being recommended is a 70-30 split, so that means that 70% of that $1 million is being attributed to Summerwood residents, and then the town, and this is usually done this way as a show of good faith on behalf of the town, that the town's willing to share in that cost. So 30% of that $1,060,000 would be paid by the town, and that's presuming it was voted this way. So that would take a betterment cost down to $6,396.55 for each unit. The proposed term is 30 years. Typical roadway betterments are 15 and/or 20 years. Virtually all betterments up until a few years ago were 20 years. But then when the state came out with the larger values that they needed to construct sewer systems, then they gave towns additional time to pay it back. So it got extended to 30 for sewer betterments. So in this case, it's being recommended that if the town's going to have a 30-year term on repaying the debt, that be extended to you as well. Interest, my proposal would be 0%, and for a similar reason, the town and the commission always has the option of charging some form of interest. But in this case, the town is getting this loan, the $54 million loan, at 0% through the state. So if the town's not paying interest, then you would be receiving that benefit as well. So that would mean that the actual betterment assessed per unit would be $6,396.55. And on an annualized basis, that would mean that you would have to pay $213.22 for each unit per year. So that was what I had. And if you have any questions, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Before we open this up, just to underscore what our interim town engineer has said, why are we sewering? It's because Mashpee's water quality is horrendous. Now, everyone in here pays taxes already, and it really is not pleasant when you get a message in the mail that says, now you have to pay more, and you don't have a say in the matter. We've tried to take that burden as serious as we could. So we are proposing that the town subsidize you, like Mr. Rajak said, 30% of the cost. And we're proposing that it be stretched out over 30 years at an interest rate of 0% to make it as painless as we can. The reason we have to do it at all is because you have private property and the town cannot come in and improve private property without assessing a betterment legally. Any questions or comments from the commissioners before we open this up to the general populace? All right, guys. If anyone, first show of hands, and when you do approach, please approach, speak your name into the microphone and your address and say your piece.
Good evening. My name is Diane Kelly, and I'm the chairperson of the Board of Trustees at Summerwood. There's two things I'm a little confused about, Mr. Jack, and maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention. You said, first of all, that the lift station is not included in that betterment. I don't understand what that means. Is that going to be a separate cost for the owners and the town?
No, a cheap lift station's over $1 million by itself, all right? And yours is definitely higher than that. But no, none of those costs, either construction or maintenance, will be charged to the Summerwood unit owners.
Infrastructure that does not, is not for exclusive use of Summerwood is not something Summerwood will have to pay for, the residents.
Who will have the use of that lift station once it's built on our property?
It's actually hard to say. And I say that because in the old days, under a conventional gravity system, they had limitations. They could only go so far. You had what was known as a terminal manhole, which means a terminal manhole. Okay? Which is the point of no return for a sewer
Marriage?
system. That it's usually the shallowest point
Okay.
of a sewer. So
Okay.
let's say it's 4 feet down.
Yep.
Anybody beyond that wouldn't be able to connect to it by gravity, okay? But then they have low-pressure pump systems today. And even some of the state laws haven't caught up with that yet. But nonetheless, those systems can pump thousands of feet, and it overcomes that barrier. So therefore, it doesn't mean that somebody has to be capable of connecting to the sewer system by gravity in order to use that station, so to speak.
Okay.
If you wanted to take other areas down there and connect them via a low-pressure service system, that would facilitate
But the
that.
bottom line, Mr. Jack, is that the owners at Summerwood will not be responsible
No.
for the care and feeding of that that bumps, that lift station, and that it will be built not included in our cost per
Correct.
unit. Well, thank you. The other question I had, and I kind of, it's a very contrary statement. I thought I've heard you say, first of all, that the number we're getting tonight is the bottom line. That's how much it's going to cost. But then I believe you said that in 2024, 2025, there'll be a final assessment.
Yes.
So what if that final assessment is a lot more than this?
You will not have to
Doesn't
pay
matter.
for it.
Right.
I'm sorry.
So you will, the only fair way this works is to give you the estimate of the project tonight. That estimate, if it comes in above that, you will not be responsible for any overage.
Okay, because I thought I heard that it would be assessed again,
No.
and it's not. So,
The final project will likely cost more than we anticipate, inflation, supply chain,
Sure.
the usual.
Of course.
But the only cost your residents will be responsible for is the estimate given tonight.
so this is the bottom line, the whole enchilada.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we just don't like surprises 3 years down the road. So it's good to know that that's the bottom line. This is what the owners can depend upon as what they need to put their pennies away for, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The other thing is, and you may not be able to answer it, may be a premature question, but do we have any sense of what it's going to cost to hook up our units to the system once that lift station is in?
That's a highly specialized number based on each of your homes. And
Okay.
the town would get into a bit of a tricky position if they were
Yeah.
giving out estimates
Yeah.
or ranges of what those numbers could be.
Well, I understand that's not your purview, but I just wondered if this has happened in any other condominium complexes, and is there somewhere we could look that up? I mean, has this already gone forward somewhere else
Falmouth.
with a like condominium where we could sort of look at how it was handled?
I don't know off the top of my head, but as the commissioner, my home, and actually Ms. Sprout's home, is in phase one of this project.
Yep.
So we're in the exact same position you guys are.
Okay.
And we'll be learning what the costs are for our homes to connect as well. So while I can't really give you anything officially, because it's not my place, and I honestly don't know, we're in the same boat.
May I say something? Is it possible that somewhere in the Chatham area, there were developments like Summerwood that were hooked up to the system down there? Because that included several towns.
Yeah, that was kind of a conglomerate to begin with, and I can't say whether they were or weren't. But then, of course, how they handle it, I'm sure is going to be different because each town usually does. What I would recommend, though, is, and I've said this at the residential level for homes, single-family homes, your buildings, and so you have multiple units within a building, and you have a 6-inch diameter lateral is what it boils down to. So if you have 6 units in a building, all of those internally are piped into one line exiting the building. And that's what goes out to the conventional septic system, all right? That's where it should be intercepted. And so on a building-by-building basis, you should take a look at a couple of contractors and get together to do all of the buildings, if possible, with the same contractor. I would never recommend that each building go out and find their own, all right? It's not cost-effective to do that. I think the most cost-effective way is if a single contractor comes in and goes bing, bing, bing,
Yeah, well, we appreciate that.
okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next customer. Yes, sir.
My name's Tom Stark. I live at Summerwood. I'm also a trustee. I have one statement and one question. We do have 117 units, not 116. If it's possible to get that amended, that would be great. I know it's going to affect numbers probably, but obviously we can't have one unit not connected. My next question is, the only other The only other condo being affected by this is Sea Oaks. I don't know if they've had their betterment hearing yet or not. I've been looking, but I haven't seen it. My question is, we're very comparable to Sea Oaks. We have roughly the same amount of units and roughly the same amount of square footage. My question is, we needed a lift station. We gave you an easement to put that on our property. And it is a common use lift station, which means it's not solely Summerwood's lift station. Somebody across the street could be benefiting from this as well, and it's on our property. My question is, if it is Sea Oaks getting a lift station as well? And if not, is there any way to negotiate the 70-30 split? If we're having town infrastructure on our property that we have to look at, we potentially have to listen to, yes, we need it. It's in our best interest to have it. But if we have one and they don't have one and our numbers are the same, it doesn't quite seem fair. Is there any information to go along with that?
Okay, as I mentioned to Ms. Sprout when she had the question earlier, each one is different, all right? And you're really not the same.
Right.
You have longer footage on the main. Your betterment is higher than theirs will be. And although you have a lift station, they have 6 pumps on 6 of their units, all right? And once again, just like you're not being charged anything for that lift station, they will not be charged for those pumps either. But there are differences, okay? So they're not the same. Okay?
So, any room on the 70-30? 65-35?
Not for, not for me. I can certainly appreciate the thought. But at the same time, I know that historically, when a town and/or commission does elect to do betterments in this manner, that is what the apportionment generally is, it's a 70-30 split. Could it be the other way around, 30-70? Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Other questions and commentary? I really expected this to be a lot rowdier. This is a little bit of a letdown.
I have one question. The 117th unit, that isn't the office, is it?
No.
It is a privately owned unit. Okay, then he can just change the numbers to dividing by 117.
Yeah, my question would be
He'll
for
get a
you.
couple of dollars off that number.
My question for you is, if that's the case, that there's 117 units, can we vote tonight on the betterment with the caveat that it be adjusted for the total number of units if there's a mistake?
Yes. So you can vote it based on the 116 that I had mentioned, only because I'm going by the theoretical official list from the assessor's office. If it is 117, then you can just include that in the motion that if necessary to amend it to 117.
Is the,
I just-
go ahead, ma'am.
Real quick. My name's Marion Klausner. Just real quick, at the last meeting where we met, you had given us these septic management loan programs. So this is for when we connect into the line, right? Because I wanted to make sure I've had it, and I was like, ooh, I don't know. So obviously, it's a 5% interest rate versus a 0, so this is something we could use once we have
Yes.
to connect in. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Ajak?
I'm really glad that she brought that up. My understanding with that program, that is through the county, Barnstable County, and it's called the Community Septic Loan Management Program. So I know it's a big acronym and everything. The website address is on the Sewer Commission's website under Sewer Project Information. And that is something that you may want to entertain. Why? It was originally intended for the septic system on a property, and then it evolved to incorporate sewer connections as well as the abandonment of the old septic system. So those are 2 costs that residents would incur. So this is a loan program. It has a term on it. I don't know exactly what the term is, but it's a fairly long term.
20 years.
The interest rate on it, I know was in the 5% range, but my understanding was that this year it was going to be modified and it would be income-based, such that you would be able to achieve a much lower interest rate, maybe even zero on that. And once again, that's on the property, it is not on the homeowner. Okay, so it is an important consideration for those who may not have the money up front and I'm saying this not just for Summerwood in general, but anybody within the Phase 1 area. If they feel as though they don't have enough money and don't wish to go out and take a loan through a bank or something like that, this is a very affordable and achievable way of handling that connection.
Yes, ma'am.
I heard you- Did I hear you say?
Could you
that-
come on up to the
I'm
microphone?
sorry.
So,
I'm sorry.
no worries. We just want, when this is recorded and online, and we want everyone to be able to look back and hear what you have to say.
Okay, I just have a quick question about your answer about Sea Oaks. You said their betterment was less than ours?
Yes.
They have 2.5 baths, most of those units, and more square footage, so why would that be?
It's a function of the construction cost for the sewer system. And you have more
Pipes.
linear footage, okay, than they do.
In our driveways, you mean?
Yeah, well,
Okay, to
the
get
route
to
that
the units,
the
is that
route
what
that the
you
main is taking,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, yeah,
that's where the majority of the cost is.
okay.
Okay.
So it's not about the square
No.
footage or the number of facilities?
No.
It's about how long the...
The physical cost of the
Right.
infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Hearing none? As chairman, Mashpee Sewer Commission, I move to approve the order for the betterment of assessments for construction of improvements to the Summerwood condominium complex of Mashpee in the amount of $1,060,000 under the uniform unit method of sewer equivalent units to be apportioned 70% cost to the residents, 30% cost to the town. This term will be 30 years and will charge 0% interest to the homeowners. Interest per attached Schedule A.
A second.
All those, any discussion? Any discussion from the audience? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, do you have a,
I just have a question with that, would your motion?
please approach the,
Thank you. Diane Mulligan, I represent Summerwood. Would
Yes,
your
Diane.
motion also include the apportionment of the town's portion that they're going to pay and the owner's portion?
yes, when I said 30% to the town, that is the amount you're being subsidized by the town for your project.
Okay, I did not hear that, thank you.
No, it's always good because sometimes we miss stuff, so I appreciate it. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
One last question. I just wanted to make sure that the $1 million price tag for the sewer project, that includes, when you go down the middle of our road to put in the sewer pipe, that includes repairing the road afterwards. If you have to go through parking spaces or common area, that includes repairs for
Yes,
that
sir.
as well. Does it also include the filling in of the septic system that's there, or is that on us?
That's,
The abandonment of your own individual sewers will be on you, just as it will be on my house as well.
Okay,
Good questions, I appreciate it.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am,
One more.
come on back.
I just want, again, Diane Mulligan, I just want to confirm that all of the units at Summerwood have been determined that they will be gravity-fed into that lift system, so there's no question of any pumps having to be installed at Summerwood, because there has been, that has changed a couple of times, and I just want to be certain that it's all gravity-fed, that you know that now.
for my knowledge, yes.
Okay.
It's all gravity fed, based on my review of the plans.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Well, I got to say, I really appreciate the participation tonight. I've been on a couple of boards now in town, and I wish we had this much participation as this hearing does. So thank you very much. Thank you for being courteous and civil, and thanks for working with us.
And I thank you as well. I think it was great everyone came out.
I'll
Thank you.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
I second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.